Hello, everyone. We're about to start here. I've muted most of everyone's microphones while we do the presentation. I've also started recording right now, so we'll begin in a moment.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Buchholz, Deputy Director of the Northeast Region. I want to welcome you to our I-41 project virtual business meeting, specifically focused on the Highway 47 Richmond Street interchange. We wanted to get out to the area businesses that use this interchange to gather input about the project and let them know what's coming with our project moving forward. Purpose of the meeting today, little lag here. Just go over the project team so you know the people on the project. Just give an overview of our 41 project that we started on, some alternatives within the 47 interchange, our project schedule, and next steps for input. Just a couple logistics things to go over. There's a number of ways you can submit questions or comments. First in, we'd like the record of who's attending today. So if you could, either in the chat, put your name, email, phone number, or you could email us. The email is there on the lower left. It's at dotdtsdner I41@dotwi.gov. Again, that's I41. You can mail in some comments, but one of these ways, we just want to get a record of who attended today, but then also a good way, we have people in the meeting monitoring the chat room, monitoring that mailbox, to just record, and we'll handle questions as we go along. So as Scott goes through the presentation, if you think of a question, you can put it in the chat box or send us an email, and at the end we'll try to get those incorporated in. So again, just a way to keep record and get input in this virtual world that we're doing. Just some of the players of our project team. Myself, Deputy Director, and Scott Ebel will be presenting today. Colleen Harris is our Northeast Region Director. Chad DeGrave, our Project Supervisor. Brian Lipke is our Planning Project Manager. Kathy Van Price, our Environmental Coordinator. And Missy Cook, our Communications Manager. And with that, I'll hand it over to Scott to kind of take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Again, our focus today is to talk about the Highway 47 interchange, particularly with the businesses and other stakeholders around the interchange. We want to establish and maintain this communication between WSDOT and the business community, especially at these interchanges, and especially moving forward. We're still very early in our process, but as we eventually get to construction, and things that will have those larger impacts, we want to keep this communication going. We want to provide businesses with the firsthand information at key project milestones, and we want to identify needs and concerns that businesses and other stakeholders around these interchanges have as the project progresses. So I'm going to just do a very brief project overview. If you've seen some of our presentations before, this will largely be material you've seen. But I-41 is a 23-mile corridor that we're looking at from Wisconsin Avenue or Highway 96 down in Outagamie County up to County Highway F for Shoring Road up in Brown County. The purpose and need for our project is to provide a safe, reliable highway that meets interstate standards and addresses existing safety and operational deficiencies. We also plan to address the outdated Wrightstown Safety and Weight Enforcement Facility, or what we'll call a SWEF, to allow it to operate effectively with our proposed improvements to I-41. Number of the build alternatives that we've considered as we've gone through this process. One is a 4-lane modernization of the roadway, basically reconstructing with the similar lane configuration out there today, with the addition of looking also at hard shoulder running for having traffic move on the shoulders during peak times. 6-lane modernization or an expansion of the number of lanes on the highway. We're looking at specific alternatives for the interchanges, and specifically is what we're going to be talking about today, are the alternatives for the Highway 47 interchange. We're looking at overpass improvements. We have a number of bridges that go over the highway. So we'll be, and a number of those will conflict with any improvements to the mainline highway or construction of the highway, and a lot of them are also older. So we'll be replacing a number of those and improving them. And we'll also be constructing a segment of Brown County South Bridge Connector with this project. DOT has committed to constructing a new interchange with I-41 after they've completed their EIS process, which they have. So we will be moving forward with a new interchange with I-41 as part of this project. Other project elements that are under consideration with this project are combining the safety and weight enforcement facility and a new Northeast Region State Patrol post. The current post down in Fond du Lac is aging and is nearing the end of its service life. So we're considering co-locating those facilities. We're looking at a new salt shed facility at Outagamie County's Department of Public Works area. We're looking to address pavement needs at 3 existing park and ride lots that are at along the corridor at County E, County N, and County S. And we're also looking at proposed bike and pedestrian accommodations on the crossroads that either go under or over I-41, working with the communities to make sure that any bridges or underpass areas are going to meet long-term plans for the communities. So we're currently in the midst of our alternative screening process. We're assessing alternatives' effectiveness, their environmental impacts, their real estate needs, and their construction costs. We're looking to gather input on alternatives from the public, from tribes, from local governments, and other resource agencies. We are looking to identify our preferred alternative, and then we would document the screening process for those alternatives and our environmental assessment, and then which is our environmental document type that we are intending to move forward with. And then we'd be determining our final right-of-way needs, our project program costs as we move forward. So I'm going to talk now specifically about the Highway 47 interchange. And before I go into the alternatives that we're considering there, just a little bit of background information that people are aware of. 2014 through 2018, we have had some crashes at the ramps. So there is some crash history with the ramp terminals. Also want to point out the anticipated growth of the corridor. This is already a very busy corridor. We've got 25 to 26,000 vehicles a day traveling along the corridor. That's anticipated to grow, further south to around 30,000 by our design year of 2045, and then further north by up to 33 or 37,000 or so in our design year of 2045. Also want to point out at Association Drive, we currently we observe about 70 turns, either entering or exiting from that right in, right out only intersection right now. And we wanted to just point that out because we do, with our alternatives, we are proposing to make some access changes there. I also want to point out right now that currently that intersection with Association Drive, it's only about 330 feet away from the interchange at Highway 47. Evergreen to the north is about 980 feet away. Capitol Drive to the south is about 1,100 feet away. And I state that just to kind of bring up when we're, I'll say, designing or doing our preferred design for an interchange, our standards for access of a local road adjacent to the main crossroad through the interchange is typically 1,000 feet minimum is what we like to achieve. So we're basically at that with Evergreen to the north, and certainly with Capitol Drive to the south, and we certainly wouldn't be proposing to make any changes to access at those roads. But with Association Lane, we're well under that 1,000-foot minimum threshold that we like to achieve. So as part of this, and as part of just trying to upgrade our system to meet our standards and meet operational and safety concerns in the future, we are looking to make some access changes at Association Drive. So that first interchange alternative that I'll describe today is our traditional signalized intersection. The estimated costs for these alternatives are all very comparable. Same thing with, there are some minor real estate differences. The traditional signalized intersection is very similar to what's out there today. The one change that we are proposing here would be the closing of Association Drive, cul-de-sacing that to eliminate that access so that you don't have that access very close to the interchange. Again, the roundabout alternative for Highway 47, a little bit larger real estate footprint. Roundabouts have, I think everyone in the area is familiar with how roundabouts work. We have a number of them in the area. Again, access to that Association Drive would be closed off here, and in particular with the roundabout option, because the traffic tends to be a little bit more free flow. We certainly have some additional concerns with that access to Association Drive there, because you're not getting those, some of those gaps with the lights that you may be getting today. And then our final alternative that we're considering for the Highway 47 interchange is the diverging diamond interchange. Again, very similar costs, smaller real estate footprint than the roundabout interchange, a little more in line with the standard signalized approach. But again, a very short distance to Association Drive. So we would again be proposing to eliminate that access. In terms of operations, all three of these alternatives would function. We are seeing right now that the diverging diamond would probably give us the best long-term operational benefits. There are some additional safety benefits to the diverging diamond over both the roundabout alternative in terms of pedestrian safety, and then in terms with the standard signalized diamond in terms of minimizing or lessening the number of conflict points with those interchanges. So there are some considerable benefits to the diverging diamond that we're, again, we haven't made any preferred alternative decisions yet, but they are strongly under consideration here. Project schedule overall, again, we're in the middle of our environmental process. We expect this to continue through the end of 2021. Similarly with our agency coordination, which really will continue through the life of the project. Our traffic analysis is largely wrapped up at this point. Certainly when questions come up, we dig into them and see if we need to gather more information. But it is largely complete at this point. We're still working through our alternatives development. We're kind of towards the end of our screening process, where we're assessing those impacts of all the alternatives, starting to figure out exactly which way we're going to be going. And then we're going to be moving soon into our preliminary design process, getting the pen on the paper a little bit more clearly, so we can really nail down those impacts. And then our public involvement process will certainly be continuing throughout the life of this process. So some key milestones, we got our approved project initiation letter through Federal Highway Administration last January of 2020. We've had some virtual local officials meetings and virtual public involvement meetings back in the spring last year, and then in the fall last year, where again the alternatives that I described today we presented to the public for the first time. Some of our next steps include in completing that environmental assessment, which we anticipate doing by this June. And then we'll be going out to a public hearing that we anticipate to be in July of this year, with our final environmental approval anticipated for November of 2021. At that point, we would be moving into our final engineering, which tentatively would be 2022 through 24. And then our right-of-way acquisition process, along with utility relocation and a lot of other coordination that has to take place, which will largely be 2023 through 2024 timeframe, with construction to be determined after that, until we really have that environmental document and process completed. We can't say exactly when we're going to be constructing things. So with that, we will keep you informed through the life of this project. You can watch recorded copies of our virtual public meetings. We have all of our meeting displays up on our website. You can get upcoming public meeting announcements by subscribing to the project email list if you're not already on the list. Certainly most of everyone in this meeting should be already. Comment forms are also available for electronic submittal, or you're welcome to send email to the project staff or to the project email, which again I'll kind of hit on right now before we go into questions and comments. That the project email is that dot.dotneri41@dot.wi.gov. So if you have any questions right now, even you can feel free to use that or use the chat function in Teams. You can mail in your comments or again use that chat feature. Some additional contact information. Primary contacts for the project for questions would be Missy Cook, our communication manager, and myself. I'm Scott Ebel, again, the project manager for the design of the I-41 project. And with that, we will move into questions if anyone has any.
Scott, so just going through the chat room, can you, from Grand Chute, just ask a question. Can you speak to what we're going to do to look at the impacts potentially by eliminating the access of Association Drive to Richmond? And how would you evaluate that at Capitol and Association? How would that be evaluated and addressed?
Yeah, so certainly that, and I'll even go back up to just move back through the slides. So yeah, so those 70 hours or 70 hours, 70 turns that we see in an hour, and that's not a hard and fast number. That's some observations we took pre-COVID. Like we wanted to make sure that we were looking at things before COVID, assuming that things will eventually return to normal. But obviously that volume has to go somewhere. And in this case, we know it's going to go down, take Association down to Capitol, and then in large part take Capitol back over to Highway 47. So we would expect to see, an increase in the right-hand turn volumes at Highway 47, and we need to do some additional analysis at the intersection to make sure that either through signal timing mitigation or additional improvements that the intersection can handle that additional amount of traffic. We'd probably also be looking at the intersection of Association Drive and Capitol itself. We know, at least anecdotally, that the intersection at Capitol and 47 does back up a little bit, and even turning out of Association Drive onto Capitol can at times be an issue. So we'd be looking at that intersection as well.
I'd just like to add too, that's part of the reason for the meetings. We'd like to hear from you. How is that gonna, if that change goes into effect, how does that affect your employees, your suppliers, your customers? How big a change is that if they have to go down to Capitol and Association to access that normally is a right in, right out. So part of what it is just getting feedback. So I'd like to hear from you either on email or, written comments to that effect. Next question, is the DOT doing similar business meetings like this for each interchange along our 41 project?
The intent would be moving forward that we will. Usually we tend to focus on these business meetings ahead of construction at the interchanges. That's when we see a lot of the impacts here. But we know that this, in particular, any changes to the access at Association Drive has most of the other interchanges, the alternatives that we're looking at don't have similar access change proposals as part of the alternatives. And we know that something small like this that gets discussed very briefly in a mile or in a presentation about a 23-mile long project is very easy to miss. And that's something that we're cognizant of, and we want to make sure that people that the stakeholders for this interchange are aware of issues like that, so that we don't end up getting that feedback later on when we will have to backtrack potentially and make a change after we're further down a design path, which has happened in the past, and we certainly try to avoid that if we can, and that's why this interchange in particular we wanted to do some earlier outreach.
Next question from Kurt Keelish. Can you explain how the diverging diamond design is safer than a roundabout design?
Sure, the wrong way here. All right. So the primary safety benefit of the diverging diamond over the roundabout, and again, none of these are unsafe designs. I want to stress that each of these alternatives would be, in from DOT's perspective, a safe design. But some of the advantages that we see of the diverging diamond over the roundabout in terms of safety primarily have to do with pedestrian safety, and we know that the city of Appleton in particular, and Grand Chute here, they have a lot of pedestrians that travel along Highway 47 and Meade Street and Ballard, and would anticipate that will grow in the future. And the pedestrian benefit to the diverging diamond is that most of those pedestrian crossings are signalized, so they're protected by that signal when they're crossing. Whereas with the roundabouts, while we certainly think they're safe crossings, most of those roundabout crossings are still, you can't really signalize a roundabout and create that additional safety benefit for the pedestrian. So that is one of the primary safety advantages here. The other thing that I will point out, we see this as a safety benefit over a traditional signalized intersection, because each of these intersections limits the number of movements that you can make. Vehicles don't have that choice between either going straight or turning left at an intersection. I believe a typical intersection has 32 potential conflict points in them. And because of the limited way that vehicles can travel, that number of conflict points at each intersection is reduced through the DDI over a traditional signalized intersection.
Next question. Any access changes planned for West Seneca Drive? West Seneca is just to the south there between Capitol and Association. And any access allowed north of West Seneca Drive?
We're not currently making or proposing any access changes for West Seneca Drive.
And then I don't know the answer to this question either. Maybe you do. Is this route access controlled already or not? I mean, so if somebody wanted a new driveway in that area,
That's something that we'd have to look at or look up.
is this is connecting highway?
I believe south of, I don't think it is
Okay.
down to Capitol, but I think south of Capitol it is.
Okay. If you want to ask questions now too verbally, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you, and you can, if you feel comfortable doing that versus typing into a chat or into the email. Either one will work. Paula from the city asks on city's thoughts on bike ped connection still being maintained for Association Drive.
Yeah, if there's currently a bike ped connection that goes through there, we would likely maintain that. I think even in some cases where there's been a similar configuration to this, I'm thinking of the, there was it was already previously cul-de-saced on Oneida Street on, US 10, where Oneida Street is US Highway 10 at the 441 interchange. There's a cul-de-sac and a kind of a similar configuration as this. And we actually even added an access there for pedestrians because we recognize that was a concern. So it's likely that we would be maintaining any connections that are there today.
Paula, you have your hand raised. Go ahead if you want to unmute. Go ahead.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So I just want to. I think all the folks at DOT know we're really struggling with the multi-lane roundabout at Northland and Richmond. It's actually 3 lanes in a couple of the directions. So I'm just a little worried that, if we propose the roundabout option here, I think that negativity from that intersection would carry over. So I think from my perspective, I would definitely be pushing for the diverging diamond option.
Thank you, Paul.
Mike Hardy asked the question, when will turn movement level service projections for alternatives be available?
Yeah, Mike, we can get together after this. We've done for the alternatives, and specifically for the comparison of the diverging diamond alternative with the standard signalized alternative. We have what our team, our current team with Jacobs and SRF as a sub to them has done, and we've also done some additional work with a firm, HDR has a specialty in diverging diamonds. So we can assemble all that data for you and get back with you.
Paula, do you have another question or comment?
No, I did not. Thanks.
Okay. Nope. Again, if there's questions, there's a little hand icon at the top of the page. You can raise your hand and then lower your hand accordingly, or you can do the email or chat box, either one. Question, did the meeting invite notification sent to nearby businesses include the maps showing the potential Association Drive cul-de-sac, or specifically state that the close of Association Drive was being considered?
No, I don't believe the invite itself specifically stated that. Again, that was the purpose of this meeting. Certainly we can follow up with additional information on that if folks feel that it's appropriate.
Kurt Keelish, on behalf of the Valley Baptist, is in a building program including south parking lot and other buildings along Richmond. How can we minimize the impact of taking out to prevent complications in the future? Again, I think it's Kurt working directly with Scott and our engineering team to see where you have plans, what you have and what we have, and working together and communicating to see what those are to minimize any impacts. Certainly that's our goal. So if you have plans, certainly reach out to Scott and meet with them and our team to get those details. And likewise, we'll share as we move forward in this process and refining the design to minimize the impacts as well.
Yeah, again, and I would echo that as well. We know that there's a lot of development that's occurring along, well, the entire corridor. But we know that there's development under construction at this interchange. Further to the north at the corner of 47 and Evergreen. Down the line at Ballard Road, we know there's a lot of either development or expansion occurring in that area as well. And whenever we can work with those property owners to, we certainly don't want to run into a situation where something gets built and then we need to acquire land. The more we can talk ahead of time and avoid that, the better.
Troy from Quick Trip just wanted to confirm no changes or impacts north of the interchange near the Evergreen Meyer Quick Trip development, and that is correct.
Yep. Yep. Any other questions? Yep.
Mike asked about the southern limits, project limits, and the graphics don't go far enough south. Our intent is to match as quick as you can, depending on the horizontal alignment and the vertical. But that'll be detail we'll clean up and get refined in our graphics.
Yeah, and again, some of that comes down to which alternative do we end up selecting, and it's easier to tie some things in than others. And
again, just want to reiterate, the purpose today was really to give businesses in the area, this look of our alternatives and give us feedback. So, if people didn't attend, but that they're in the neighborhood, get that out to them. We'd love to hear from them, love to talk to them on the details and, how it impacts their businesses. And, as we move further along on this project, we're just picking interchange type now, but then there's going to be other feedback that we'll want on construction timelines and input in that timeline as well of how we build this thing. There's numerous ways you can do it, but how do you do it to minimize impacts to businesses in the area and stakeholders? So that'll be another thing that'll be down the line as we move forward with the project. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, again, want to thank everybody today. Thanks Scott for his time and team putting this stuff together. And we want to emphasize, we want to hear from you through this process and this project and work together to deliver our project in the most cost efficient way we can and provide a safe product for all the users in the future. So,
I think we got one
Sure.
last question that came in here.
Will access change for businesses with driveways on Richmond between 41 and Capitol? Any planned new medians?
I guess we are, we didn't show that at this time. We will always be evaluating whether or not there's improvements that can be made for operation and safety. So we don't want to preclude anything at this point in time. But I guess that's what I'll leave it at right now. It's something that's being considered, but it's not something that we've made any decisions on at this point. So again, that's where we'd be looking for that feedback.
And again, some of it's going to depend on what alternative gets selected here. You know, will depend on how far the limits to the south go, and then what any impacts to the median that have to be done. Kurt asked, is it right to assume that the diverging diamond is the alternative of choice by the DOT? Too early to say at this point. No, that's why we're here. That's why we're getting input into the project. But we will be presenting our preferred alternative at a public hearing in July of 2021. Any other questions? Bill asked, the diamond seems to move 47 east, a little closer to Valley Baptist Building. Does it indeed need to move east?
I can answer that a little bit more detailed, just because of the way that the diverging diamond interchange works with that, that intersection to cross over to the other side of the roadway. There does need to be some, say, bowing out of the road there. Now, this hasn't been, this is a very early iteration of this design, and that's where we, sometimes we'll look at, can you make other alignment changes to try to minimize a particular impact, and that's where we haven't done that degree of fine tuning yet. So, I say in generally, yes, we do need to bow that roadway out a little bit more for the diverging diamond to work. Exactly what that impact is, we try to be very conservative with what we're showing on these earlier displays. So we don't think it'll be anything more than what's out here, what's shown on this display. And we try to fine tune and minimize that as best as we can as we move through this process. And that all assumes that the diverging diamond is the selected alternative, which, as Tom just mentioned, we haven't made that decision yet.
And I'd add into that too, if you look southbound on Richmond, that same deflection goes to the west up in those vacant lots up by that Meyer area as well. So it's kind of that consistent design of, getting that traffic in a diverging diamond. That's just one of the aspects that you have to do, is sort of deflect that out to get the right angle into that signalized intersection of the diverging diamond. But it's certainly a detail work out as if that is the preferred alternative to further refine as necessary. Good questions. Thank you. Keep them coming if you can think of some.
Oh, okay. I've got the chat here. Adam Busalaki at the DMV office asked, are there any alternatives that include access to Association Drive? We haven't showed them on our displays here, but we've certainly had other discussions with City of Appleton and Town of Grand Chute about this corridor. So there's no other alternatives that have been precluded at this point. So if you're asking specifically, would we consider a write-in only type of a situation to partly address the condition? I would say that those alternatives are not off the table yet. So again, that's where we appreciate that feedback.
And Josh asked, is there a way to look at the previous slides, either print or online after the meeting?
Yes, and yes, there is, and we will post a copy of the PowerPoint to the website after we're done, so that you can look at it at any point in the future.
Is there something, Josh, you want to look at right now that we can click to?
Yeah, I can certainly jump to something too.
Yeah, and if once we'll post it on the website, and if there's questions after that, just reach out to Scott or Missy too, and we can send you a link to. Either one works for us. So. Okay, last call for questions.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, again, I want to thank everyone for jumping on and attending. We know that this is not ideal in terms of how we hold our meetings. We're all looking forward to getting back to, you know, a somewhat non-virtual environment, but we appreciate your willingness to join in on these. And you know, we think this is a good tool to keep our stakeholder outreach going during these times. And I see one last question here. Do both alternatives utilize the existing structure? And that is from Matt Hallida. And that is a good question. All alternatives here assume that we are reconstructing the bridge over I-41. The bridge itself is fairly old, having been built back in I think that was built in the 60s, and the median or the pier configuration underneath the bridge isn't very conducive to either expansion of the highway or even reconstruction of the highway and staging of traffic. So it's really that pier condition underneath the bridge that's going to drive us needing to reconstruct the bridge. All right. Well, again, one last thank you to everybody. Appreciate your time this morning. Hope you have a really good day.